The relationships between England and its nearest neighbours are hotly contested. The links between the nations, constitutional, economic and cultural, up for often intense debate. That's certainly the story in 2021 as the union of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland comes under new strain, tested by both Brexit and the pandemic. But it's also been the story at key moments in the history of the Union. In this special edition of The Long View, ahead of a new season of programmes on Radio 4, exploring the future of the UK and the state of the Union, we'll be looking at three of those moments, one each for Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, where the Union's future, its terms of engagement, were under similar scrutiny. And we begin at the beginning, with the start of the union between England and Wales, and we're joined by Dr. Sarah Ward-Clavier of the University of the West of England and author of the upcoming Royalism, Religion and Revolution, Wales 1640 to 1688. And Sarah Ward-Clavier, we're going just a bit before then, before the period marked by your book. We're talking about the middle of the 16th century in the 1530s and what's known as the Acts of Union. So just tell us what those were and why they were deemed necessary.
The Acts of Union were a series of legislative changes occurring in the period 1536 to 42, formally uniting Wales and England, setting up the Great Sessions, which was the equivalent of the English Assize Courts, and essentially bringing Wales into legal conformity with England.
And I said before that this will begin at the beginning, and you've just said there that this formalised the relationship, but of course the relationship and the bond between the two had been sealed long earlier.
It's the kind of end point of a centuries-old drive towards extending the Crown's authority. Following the Edwardian conquest, completed in 1283, and the Statute of Rhuddlan in 1284. And what this did is formalise that arrangement, bring new shires into existence alongside the existing 6 counties, and most controversially stipulated English as the language of law, government and administration.
So that would obviously have a huge impact, the formalising of those links, but specifically the point you just made there about language. What other effects did these Acts of Union, formally binding Wales and England together, what other impacts did they have?
One of the impacts that particularly the Welsh elites liked the most was that it removed the bar on the Welsh occupying certain public offices, on bearing arms or on buying property in English towns, anti-Welsh statutes which were put in place by Henry IV in 1402. Now, these hadn't entirely been kept to. I mean, people find a way round these things all the time. But this opened the way for far more Welsh people to seek their fortunes in London and English towns. And although that seems like it's a thing that might drain Wales of economic power, actually what it ended up doing is bringing Welshmen into power in England and that filtering back into Wales.
So that's really important because the impression some people would have, and I suppose this would be a narrative you might get from Welsh nationalists, for example, would be that the Acts of Union were some kind of takeover by England of Wales and that the Welsh would be dragged kicking and screaming into that. But your research, your findings are that actually Welsh elites were pretty comfortable with this new and formalised union.
Yes, in fact, it was seen as removing oppression. It made Welshmen equal under the law to Englishmen. And so actually it was viewed fairly positively. You also, of course, get parliamentary representation with the first Welsh MPs elected in 1542 and hugely improved political and economic opportunities, which have a great impact on Wales as well as improving opportunities in London and in England.
Well, the right moment then to bring in the BBC's Wales correspondent, Hywel Griffiths. This point there about Welsh elites doing pretty well out of the union because there are all kinds of job opportunities and other things. That was the story in the 16th century. Would, do you think, Welsh elites say the same thing in 2021?